What's up, everyone? It's Chuck here with It's Just Work Training, and I am super excited to bring you guys the It's Just Work podcast, hosted by yours truly, Chuck Clemons, and I got my boy, my brother, my dog, Steven Herlihy here with me. Steve, what's going on, man? How you doing?
It's going well. Yeah, it seems like not too long ago we were on the court, battling it out, but here we are. We're very excited for this, and yeah, let's get
Yeah,
right into it.
no, this is awesome. This is special for me because I've known Steve for about 5 years now, five going on
Yeah,
6 years now. And we just love college basketball. We just love basketball in general, but college basketball, I found us really like talking about it, really digging deep into it these past 5 years knowing each other. So I was just like, why don't we start a podcast and start recording ourselves talking about it? And this is super special. It's one of my best friends, and I think this is just a great thing that we can have together, just going forward from now. To start it off, just gotta give you guys a little bit of background of what our purpose is of this podcast, what we're trying to get across to you guys is the first thing we want to give our insights at a high level of knowledge to the youth and to our viewers. Like I said, me and Steve talk about college basketball all the time, and I don't know if I'm giving us too much credit, but we think we have high level knowledge, and we want to just pass that on to you guys. Especially for younger players, we want to give you guys a little bit more insight of what the college world is like. Me being a player, just graduating and finished from there, and Steve being a coach. And also, we want to break down plays, break down even stuff from a training aspect of why a player did this, why a player didn't do this. And we'll have guests on the show, whether it's players, coaches, just to also give their insights of it as well. So those are the main purposes, main goals of what this podcast is about, and we're just super excited. How about we start with Steve? Let's talk about a little bit of your background. How'd you talk about a little bit
yeah,
of your basketball background, starting from high school,
yeah,
obviously played, got
yeah,
into coaching a little bit, but yeah, let's talk about that.
yeah. So I played basketball in high school, played pretty competitively, AAU and whatnot. But again, everyone has their last day, last game and whatnot. So decided to go to RPI, be a regular student. But I always, loved basketball, so I figured why not stay involved with the game I love. So one day, I just talked to Coach Gilbride, who's the head coach at RPI. Kind of told them what my value add was, and how my passion for the game separates me in terms of an average person. And yeah, I was on the staff for 2 years. Obviously, Chuck was on the team. He was one of my great friends beforehand. He actually, was one of the people that put in a good word for me, so that was always helpful. But yeah, so again, having that coaching background along with Chuck's playing background, it gives us kind of a unique perspective, I would say, on the game as a whole.
Just to give the viewers a little bit of insight of Steve. The first time I met Steve was freshman year of college. We were this during COVID and stuff like that, and like he knew like who our whole team was. I feel like already, like he was already tapped into the NEPSEC basketball, and I was just like, oh shoot, this guy, he has some knowledge. And then just going forward from there, like you said, I kind of give him word to Coach Gilbert. And I was like, I think Steve would be a great addition to the RPI basketball team. And I don't know if I'm gonna give you your flowers yet, but you did your thing, man. You helped us out so much from the sideline, and yeah. So I'm just super glad we're doing this.
The hard part is what you guys did on the court. So I
Yeah,
was just sitting there and watching you guys do it. So it was
yeah, man.
definitely easy to do.
No, it's full team effort, man. Full team effort. Just to give you guys a little bit of background myself, for people who don't know who I am. My name is Chuck Clemons. I'm from Trumbull, Connecticut, born up in Bridgeport. I played high school basketball at Notre Dame in Fairfield. Went there for 3 years. Was able to get a state championship there. A few conference championships there as well. After there, I transferred to a prep school in New Canaan called St. Luke's. I spent 2 years there. We were able to do a lot there. We won our conference championship there, made it far in the NEPSAC, and then from there committed to RPI. That's where like I've been saying all day is where I met Steve. Spent 5 years at RPI. Started from honestly the bottom up. I was probably the last player on the bench, and then I was able to work my way up to the starter this past year at RPI. And I think that's something that we want to also really highlight for this podcast. It's really just like I said, show kids the process of what college is like. A lot of times people think college is it's gonna be all flowers, all great. You're gonna come in as a freshman, you're gonna play, you're gonna do your thing. But I know Steve obviously knows from seeing it from the outside looking in. College is probably one of the this is probably the most fun you're gonna have, but it's probably one of the hardest times you're going to go through your life because you're figuring stuff out on your own. You're now with your family, and have showing our stories from a basketball standpoint, even from like a coaching standpoint, I think is going to be what's going to separate our podcast looking in. But for the agenda for today, we're just going to highlight the preview of college basketball. Like I said, me and Steve are huge in college basketball. Just to get this out there, I'm a big Duke fan, so if anything comes out a little bit biased on the Duke side, that is where I stand. But yeah, man, Steve. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was just gonna add one point to the podcast in general. I think most people, they think of college basketball and they think of Division 1, right? And they don't think of, the other levels and whatnot. So I think this podcast, given our Division 3 background and hopefully the guests and the coaches we have on, will give people a real insight in what it's like to play and coach at that level because as we both know, it's not just you show up and you play games on Friday and Saturday and you just go to practice. There's April when no one's thinking about basketball going to lift. There's team camp in the summer. There's all the stuff you guys do in the fall. It's much more of a whole year process than I think people realize, and it takes a lot of commitment and hard work. So, yeah, we're definitely looking forward to tap right into that.
yeah, just to add on to that as well, we're gonna have coaches from all levels, D3, D2, D1, players from all levels as well that me and Steve have reached out to, D1, D2, D3. Like Steve kind of said, I feel like we all have a similar experiences just playing basketball in college, but I think there's a lot of different things that a D3 player might go through rather than a D1 player. And I think given all you guys all of that information from each level, from each viewpoint, is just gonna be great for us and from the viewer standpoint.
And I also think, as you know, when me and Chuck were in high school, middle school, we can attest to this now. Like having an account like IJW, having this podcast, these are all resources we wish in middle school and high school that we had and we could really learn from because at the end of the day, most kids, whether they play in college or not is one thing, but nearly every kid that'll watch this podcast or is on IJW, seeing the posts and whatnot, they're really wanting to get better and learn more about basketball. And there's no better place than this podcast. So we're excited about that as well.
It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. College basketball, man. This is a crazy landscape. College basketball is not what it was when we were growing up at all in terms of just NIL, transfer portal. Bet you can bet now in college, or it seems like you can start betting in college in
Yeah.
sports. Something that kind of has been highlighted these past couple weeks is this G League to college. This overseas 22. That's all today. Illinois guy,
Yeah.
22 years old. He's going to Illinois. He's
3
22
years
years
of
old. Three
eligibility.
years of eligibility left. What's your insights on this? Obviously, that guy, London Johnson from the G League, is now going to be committed to play at Louisville next year. I just want to hear about your thoughts on what this is going to do as to basketball for in
Yeah,
general.
so I think what we're, highlighting here is obviously being in the G League and then coming back for eligibility. And I do feel that, it's one thing at 18, 19 years old to decide, hey, maybe after a year of the G League, I'll go to college and whatnot. But it's another thing to, let's say you go in the G League and then today I believe there's a player that in the 2023 draft actually went into the draft, got undrafted and played in the G League. And that's where I think kind of that's probably where the line needs to be drawn, right? Because that's a decision you made to go in the draft and forego college. So it'll be interesting to see what the NCAA kind of goes forward with that. But yeah, it's a wild world now, right? Because obviously European, overseas, whether that's whatever country, whatever league, obviously teams now are really recruiting out of there, and some of those guys are 21-year-olds that they're bringing over, and like you said, a 22-year-old freshman that's or with 3 years of eligibility. That's I've never seen that before. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think there's no like responsibility on the players now. I feel like they can make certain decisions and they kind of can just go back on it. Like if you make a
absolutely.
decision to go to the G League, that's like you're trying to go to the NBA. Like you're like I'm foregoing college, I'm foregoing everything else, and I'm trying to go straight to the NBA. And I think sometimes, which I think we've lost just in college basketball in general, is like you got to make these decisions. You got to live with it. If it doesn't go your way, it's like how can you come back and kind of restart your whole process a few years later down the line. That's something that I think college in general has a lot to work on. Is like these just older players kind of diluting and taking over college basketball. It's supposed to be an amateur sport, but these guys are like in the NBA.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I think that definitely early stages on. I think the NCAA committee has to really dig into deep too, because me personally, I don't want to see 22-year-old kids, 22-year-old grown men
absolutely no.
taking
Yeah.
spots from 18-year-old kids coming out of high school. And it's so hard now, just in general. So
Because I agree with your point, and I think a friend told me this the other day of kind of a model maybe the NCAA could look at is so for college baseball, it's either out of high school you could declare for the draft and get drafted, or you have to stay in college for 3 years. And I think that could be a possible solution to this, just from the aspect, right? Let's say you're an Amari Stoudemire or Dwight Howard and you're physically gifted enough where you can go to the NBA right from high school. That makes a ton of sense. Why go to college? But if you're going to go to college, right, stay for 3 years, right, develop, work on your game, and that way also it takes out like, you know, that kind of back and forth of like, kids leaving, going to G League and then coming back to college and whatnot. So I think it's just a little bit more stability there. It's a possible solution, definitely.
yeah, that's definitely something I feel they should definitely look into. How do you feel, or what do you think this does to high school players coming into college? Like, what kind of effects does that take for them, you think?
Yeah, so I think obviously, for example, Kentucky this year, I think the number he was in the 30s for the ESPN Top 100. He's probably the 13th player on the bench, and 5 years ago, right? You're the number 33rd player in the country. It's like that's the lock to start, right? Or
Exactly.
a top 7 or 8 guy, and I think what it's going to shift to now is one, and maybe you could speak to this because you're probably more familiar in the AU circuit. Players are definitely going to post grad more, right? They're coming into college at 19 or 20 and whatnot. And that's one thing. But also, I think most kids now, and a player that I noticed this with recently was Ryan Mesh, who committed to Siena.
Hmm.
If you're a top 50 to 100 player, it's not maybe in your best interest to go to Kentucky anymore. You might as well go to a Siena, for example, like Ryan Mesh did, and ball out there for the year. And then the reality is, based off the transfer portal, you're going to have a lot of high major suitors that next year, and you'll have another year under your belt of physically maturing and mentally seeing the speed of the game, and you'll be better suited to have more success.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you bring up Ryan Bench because he's a great player, and I think we've seen that much more with a lot of other four-star players who are kind of fringe five-star who may go to high major and kind of get, put on the bench and not really play that much. But if you can come in as a four-star, three-star, whatever it is, go to a low major, go to a mid major, do your work there because you probably will get, if not starting, you'll probably get a lot of minutes coming in as a higher recruit and,
Absolutely.
and do your work there because obviously we know college coaches are looking for these older players. You see Rick Pitino saying things like, we're not recruiting high schoolers. This whole team, there's literally like no high schoolers on this team from this
Right.
past year. So why not go to a smaller school, make a name for yourself, into the portal? Because it honestly looks good for you, but also looks good for the school sometimes. Like, okay, these coaches are producing players, developing, doing something there that we got to start looking into schools like that as well. So that's definitely a great pull with Ryan Mesh, like a lot of other players that are also, I think, should start taking that route and have to start looking into just because where the landscape is in college basketball.
Yeah, because if you really think about it now, right, other than Duke, what programs are really year in and year out relying on 5-star freshmen, right? Maybe one or two get pulled in with a bunch of, guys that have returned, a couple of experienced transfers.
Mhm.
So it's just that's the reality of it now. Again, as a 18-year-old kid, I mean, there's guys who are, especially the past few years with the COVID extra year, 18-year-olds going against 25, 26-year-olds. It's tough. So,
No, it's gonna be interesting to see where once we start having these coaches on here, seeing what their mindsets are on as well, because they're gonna be ones that are recruiting players. They're the ones that are making all these decisions. So it's definitely interesting to see where they're coming from.
and
I probably think they're coming from the same lens as us as well. But
I think another aspect in terms of the coach's point of view is, as you see in college basketball, a lot of the preseason predictions, one of the key predictors of, why someone's so high on a team like Purdue, for example, is roster continuity,
hmm
right? So I'm interested with the coaches. How are you preaching to recruits? Hey, that first year you're probably not going to play, but if you're here for that second year, right, you're going to really become the guy for us, or you're going to be in our starting five, seven, eight, and this is how it's going to benefit you.
Hmm.
So I'm interested from the high school recruiting point of the example. It's kind of gone back to where, in the 80s and 90s, kids were staying for 3 or 4 years now. So I'm interested now. A lot more programs are probably having to sell kids on, hey, this is probably a 2 or 3 year plan rather than this is a one and done. So I think that's a great kind of aspect to look at as well.
Yeah, I think when you look at all these high schoolers, I feel like they're not really trying to do all the development and stay for these 2 3 years.
Right,
I think those are the ones. Yes, you have the ones that are like, yeah, they're going to come in and get out. But I
right.
think there's some players like was Carter Knox out of Arkansas. I have him written down right here. CJ like these type of players that they're pretty high touted players out of high school, but it's like you're going to go to school and you have to kind of work your way up and stay 2 3 maybe 4 years to get to where you want. I mean, it's NBA, overseas, wherever it is, but it's like you can develop within these systems. But I think so much of it is like the money aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Like how these teams are breaking down their money year in and year out. It's like, okay, you can get this much this year. We don't know if you're going to get that same much.
Yeah, a
You know what I'm
great
saying?
example, two examples, right? Two of the biggest transfers this year was Yaxel Landenborg at Michigan and then
Mhm.
Boogie Fland at Florida. Those two players have the talent to be drafted or in the NBA. Whether they stick or not is one other question, but they got the money where it was like maybe we don't know the exact figures, but if they're turning down potential first round or second round guaranteed money, that means they got a lot of money to stay and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, this can be a whole episode in itself, talking about just the money, this G League stuff, all this. Like, it's crazy. Like how I feel like it kind of just started to like 2021, 2022. That's when they were started bringing things up with NIL, and now it's kind of
Absolutely.
just shifted into a
And
whole
it
different thing.
it's funny with the NIL now. It used to be like, okay, you could be on a commercial. And it's not that players aren't on commercials now, but now there's collectives where it's more of like you're signing a contract where you're getting maybe it's a 1 year contract, maybe it's a 2 year contract of what the guaranteed money is. So
Yeah,
it's definitely more not just, hey, let's go on a, Dunkin' Donuts commercial, right?
it's
It's a little
crazy.
bit more than that now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's crazy. I think that we'll definitely get back to the throughout this whole series. We'll definitely just have to start talking about that stuff. That's always going to come up. But college basketball, it's literally next week. Like it's
next Monday, yeah.
oh my, we've been getting some crazy games so far, but we'll get into it towards the end. But like these games kind of felt like some March Madness.
Felt like a Sweet 16 Elite Eight game. Some of
That's
them, yeah.
that's exactly what my dad was saying. But we came up with a couple teams that we think are gonna be great headed into it. Teams that might think be overrated. So let's start with your teams that you think are gonna be pretty solid. That you're looking forward to watch this upcoming year.
Yeah, so I think based off of what the preseason rankings are and where these teams, are based right now, I kind of viewed it as, do I think they're going to finish above where they are? So one of the teams I really like is NC State.
Hmm.
I really like them. New coach Will Wade. Every year, whether he's been at every year at LSU, he overperformed his preseason expectations on Ken Palm, which is a pretty popular predictive metric that a lot of college basketball teams use. They brought in a ton of talent. Matthew Abel is actually someone who I think could be an NBA
No,
prospect
it's
after
funny
by
that you said NC State. I literally wrote they're like one of my teams too. I'm super high on them. I have Matthew Abel down 6'6" guard, but he's different.
yeah, and he, Will Wade's always been known to get high level talent and one of the, bigger name recruits in the transfer portal he reportedly got from Kansas was literally, I think, about to sign Darren Williams, and he got Darren Williams
Oh,
there. So
really?
that's, yeah,
I
so that's a huge get for him.
I know that.
They have a lot of great guys they brought from McNeese State.
Hmm.
Um, then Alan Lubin from UNC. Late in the year last year, he was really solid for UNC.
He's been
So I'm
doing great
interested.
so far
Yeah,
this like preseason.
obviously Trey Hollerman,
Yep.
Michigan State point guard, but yeah, he always seems to overperform expectations. And I think in an ACC where, yes, I think the top teams have improved from last year, Will Wade's just going to play that athletic, up and down basketball that I really think for that league is going to be tough to deal with. So I think they're right now, if I looked on both the coaches and AP poll. They're not in the top 25, but
No, I think they're
I have
right on
no
the right
doubts
side.
that they'll be in the top 25
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. I don't know. Will Wade, like you said, he just like knows a way to have his players buy in. Like I've seen so many videos on like social media and
Right.
it just looks like it's a fun but like super intense atmosphere of like their practices. I saw this video where like they're literally practicing like it's a game where they're taking time out, sitting down, doing halftime breaks, and he really like gets the buy-in from all of his players.
And just from a player's perspective, maybe you could speak on this. What is it like playing for a coach based off what you've heard and seen from Will Wade? Because there's one, side of things where it's like it's easy to play for a guy like that that's so emotional and so invested in you. But on the other side of things, there's probably times where he's probably in your face and he's probably like, pretty emotional. And most of those NCAA tournament games, you could tell he's not sitting there with his hands, sitting on his hands, right? He's a guy that's, pretty emotional. So just from a player's perspective,
Yeah.
what's that like?
I think when you see I think I saw this later on with Coach Gilbride, especially when I was out my senior year. I saw it from like that aspect of it. When you see your coach, how much he wants to win, how much he like loves to win, how much he loves the team, I think that just pushes you to that next level. It's like, yeah, you obviously want to win, but now you're not playing for yourself, you're not playing for your team. It's like you're playing for your coach now. It's like this guy that's going to lead us. We got to go win it for him. It's not about you anymore. And I think that's, at least from what I've seen so far with Will Wade and just the teams that he's had, it's like he gets the buy-in from every single person. And I think that starts kind of, it's probably starts, I don't know too much, but it probably starts off the court with him. Like he's probably talking to his players, seeing how they're doing. And I think getting that buy-in from off the court, it makes it so much easier on the court. And yeah, I mean, I had them down as one of my teams that I like heading into the season. They also have Terrence Arsenault transfer.
Yeah,
He was really
Houston.
highly touted coming out of high school. Um, he did okay at Houston. I don't think he got to his expectations, but I think he'll be a great transfer coming from them as well. So
I think it also speaks to, right, Terrence Arsenault is probably someone high recruit at Houston, right? They've had great teams the past few years. He probably could have easily left the past
yeah,
2 years, but he
yeah,
chose to stay. And I think that says something about someone's character,
for
right?
sure.
A lot of these guys in the transfer portal are talented, but it's a lot easier to ruin a team or mess up a team's chemistry with a bad attitude. Doesn't matter how talented you are. And I think a lot of the guys Will Wade brought in are from not only winning programs, whether it's Williams, Arsenault, Hollerman, they're high character guys. So I think to your point, I think that he's someone who's definitely a physical, athletic defender that, again, in the ACC, it's going to be tough for teams to match that.
Yeah, I like their makeup. I like their makeup as a team. I think like I had that Matt Abel kid written down. I watched him in some like summer runs this year. I didn't realize he was like 6'6". At least they have him listed as 6'6".
Yeah,
And he
he's,
looks
yeah,
like he's a point guard.
yeah,
I don't think he did that great in one of their scrimmages, but I feel like if he can get to that level of what we're probably expecting him to get to, I think they're going to be a team that's like going to be pretty scary come March and obviously in the
absolutely.
ACC. Another team I had written down, they just played against Duke. They didn't beat them, but I had Tennessee written down. Um, I think they have good makeup as a team as well. They have point guard Jacoby Gillespie, proven point guard, super dynamic and get a shot off. I think he's a great leader coming in for Zakai Ziegler. Obviously, they lost him to lead that team, but I think Nate Ament can be one of the best freshmen in the country in terms of like his usage rate. Like I think he's gonna be a guy that's gonna get all of his shots up, like at least 15, 20 shots a game. So if he can play that level, Gillespie can play at his level, and then they have a really good supporting group. Super physical team. They play defense really hard. I think they're going to be a team that a lot of teams in the SEC, just in general, in March are going to be pretty scared to play for.
From a, I watched a little bit last night as well, and obviously Nate Ament, you hear a lot of draft buzz around him. What from a, obviously with your training background and just skill development background, what do you see in his game that really makes him unique? Obviously the size and the ability to shoot, but was there anything last night that you saw versus a Duke team, right, who's has length across the board and defensively is probably going to be one of the top teams in the country? What did you kind of see in that game that made you think, he's definitely could be have a great year like it seems like you think he could?
Yeah. I think, at least from what I saw yesterday in that one game, was like his mid range in between game was like pretty solid. He was really trying to get to that mid range area, whether it was in the mid post, getting to the little turnaround, getting to the two dribble pull up. I think he kept it really simple. He wasn't really doing too many combo moves, try to get to a step back three. Like he knew what kind of spots he wanted to get to. Last night didn't fall, but I think his usage rates being so high and him getting a lot of shots up, and I think he's gonna take shots that are gonna be good shots for him. Um, that's why I like him a lot. I think like his size, he's like 6'10", pretty lanky. He's obviously had to put some weight on,
Right.
obviously going to the league and stuff like that. But um, his game just looked pretty mature in terms of scoring as like an 18, 19-year-old
Yeah.
freshman.
And the past 2 years at Tennessee, obviously Dalton Connect and Chaz Lanier, right?
Yeah.
They've had those kind of alpha scorers that have done really well. So I'm excited to see someone who has just as much talent, if not more, than those guys. How he
Yeah.
does.
And I think the obviously difference with them is those guys were like grad students, older guys, and he's gonna have his freshman moments where he's
Absolutely.
going 3 for 16, turn the ball over. But I mean, hopefully if he could be at that level where we think he could by the end of like February, early March, I think they're gonna be a really really tough team to go against.
Absolutely.
Who you got next? Who you got next for me?
So this team, for the past 2 or 3 years, I kind of think has went under the radar for how well they've done. I know they've had one tournament they went out early, but I really like Arizona. They're a team where they always offensive rebound this year really well. And again, how the game's going, right? A lot of teams are taking 3-point shots, but again, especially in college, right? It's not going to be 40% every game. So you got to bring something that's going to be reliable, game in, game out. And their front court is just, they're studs. They have two
Who
guys coming, yeah.
who
Um,
else they have? Not
they
really.
have Krivas, the European center. He's,
Hmm.
again, a really solid player. And then I think what this year separates them from past years, I legitimately think they have two possible NBA prospects in Burries and
Yeah.
Koa Pete.
Hmm.
I watched a little bit of their scrimmage against St. Mary's, obviously a team who's, very physical on defense and it's hard to
Hmm.
score against. You could tell those guys athletically so far their games, like those guys could definitely play in the NBA at some point. And I think to having a deep March run and get to a Final Four, you kind of have to have some games where the talent just shows.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
those two guys are really, solid prospects in my opinion. And then they do have two guys who are returning in their backcourt, Jaden Bradley and Delaroso, I think his last name is, the shooter. And, last year, obviously, Caleb Love was very ball dominant and whatnot, and that won him a lot of games. But I also think at times it was definitely taking away from what they're trying to do and push the pace, get the ball inside. And I just think they have a lot of talent, 7 through 8 on that team. And Tommy Lloyd's always an excellent coach. Um, One of the kind of moments in the years past that stood out to me from him is when, unfortunately, he beat your Blue Devils on the road.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not an easy place to win, and him going in there and winning that game, and they always play great teams in the non-conference, so that shows me they're a team that they think highly of themselves and whatnot. They're not afraid of going into this year. They're going to UConn, so definitely a team I'm on the lookout for.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch them play. I think Kobe Pete and Braden Burries. I've seen a little bit of them in high school. Obviously, Braden Burries being from Cali, I think, and then Kobe
Yep,
Pete. He's kind of similar to like a Paolo Cam Buddha type of player. Where he's like 6'10", pretty strong, plays in the in between area. And then Jaden Bradley. I'm super excited to see what he can do coming from Bama, where he was once a really high recruit, but he kind of stuck it through it all 4 years now, and I think
he
being at
fit
this experience wise, he's going to be pretty huge for them.
he fits that, on defensively, he could really pressure the ball. And he's also, Arizona's a team that they do want to push the pace, get the ball inside early in transition. He's someone who really does that to a T, right? Coming
Yeah,
from Alabama, it's almost second nature.
yeah, yeah. So, no, that's definitely a team, a West Coast team that we're gonna have to probably stay up watching late in the game.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, a lot of these teams are probably going to be East Coast teams, but you got to
Yeah,
show love. So,
yeah, 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 yeah. So my last team that I have, and this is a team I was kind of on the fence on because sometimes just recently with how they kind of done and their coach how he's done has been up and down. But I think Arkansas could be a sleeper team this year. I think they have two really good freshmen, Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff. I think Darius Acuff he's nasty to me. Like he can really run the show. And they have some guys coming back. They have Wagner, I think, who should he was number one player out of high school for like his whole career. Like so he had
Right.
the talent is there. Obviously hasn't worked out probably what people thought it was for him in terms of going to the league after his first year. But he's an older player now. I think he's gonna get much better. I really like Carter Knox um, coming to his sophomore year. I think he could be um, a really good option for them on that wing. Like he's 6'6", like 60. I don't know how tall he is, but he's strong. He shot the ball really well last year, which I didn't know about, and he's coming to the sophomore year. So, and there's some pieces around that could really work with. So they're a team that you know could be
Yeah.
up and down, but I think having Coach Cal and just that dynamic duo of the freshman duo, I think they could be really solid this upcoming year.
So yeah, so I know years past when we've talked about Arkansas, especially last year, I wasn't a huge Coach Cal. Arkansas, was my
Hmm.
favorite team, but this year I think, and especially last year, you saw in the tournament, right? Wagner, Knox, Billy Richmond, Brazil, those guys played phenomenal,
Yeah, yeah,
and they're coming back. Darius Acuff is a phenomenal player. Malik Thomas is again very he can get hot, and he's someone who he's going to win them a few games just on how he can get hot quick. And you and the transfer from Florida State should give him some depth up front. But yeah, I think again when you talk about Wagner, Acuff, Richmond, Knox, and Brazil, those are five guys on the court who are going to be able to guard. They're all athletic. They're all going to be able to. So I think in the SEC, and again in tournament play, going against a team like that, it's a shock to most teams. I think that
yeah,
kind of gets. It's not it's not like you're going against whatever teams in your league if you're not in the SEC. It's
yeah.
so I agree. They were actually one of my teams as well, but I could go to a
Really?
backup. Yeah, so we
Yeah,
have two, I guess.
yeah, it's
Two.
crazy.
That's pretty crazy. Great minds think alike, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. That's
um,
crazy.
yeah, I could go to. It's anything else to add on that, or
No, I mean, I picked out three teams. Or you have any other teams, or are those
yes,
your
I have a backup one. So
okay?
I've
Yeah,
said this
what's
to
your
you
backup?
before already, and I've said this to many friends. I really think San Diego State this year
Mhm.
is going to be very solid. They bring a lot back. They get last year uh, a player who was a key player in the previous year's team, a transfer from USC, Reese Waters.
Okay.
He was out the whole year. Again, that's someone who's going to be a start in their backcourt. They have the preseason player of the year in their conference, Miles Bird, and then their center, who was reportedly going to go to Kentucky and a possible NBA prospect. He's coming back. Their team, they're very physical. They have one even the year they went to the Final Four, I don't really think they had as much talent as they did this year. And their team every year, even last year was kind of a down year, right? They beat Houston, right, during the year, and then things didn't go their way. But if they can get a little bit more easier scoring this year, their team, I think, again, not in the top 25, but they definitely can be, and they could definitely get to the second weekend in March.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of buzz around their team this year, so I definitely do a little more information on myself. But it's kind of crazy to see how like San Diego's kind of done these past, few years where they've kind of been one of the best mid-major schools like across the whole
Yeah.
country. And no, I mean, speaking to what you just said just now, it sounds like they have some players that could play at that high level. So
Yeah, the I would say Miles Bird and their center definitely are going to be NBA prospects, and we'll see how the year goes. Maybe they could slide into the first, or if they don't do as well, maybe they're going to be second round and whatnot. But especially in the Mountain West and mid major, if you have two potential NBA players, that's massive, right? Most
yeah, that's
Power
true.
Five schools are not having two NBA players, and whatnot. Obviously, in the top 25 there'll be teams with that. But most Power Five schools, again, that's not an easy thing to do,
Yeah,
especially at San Diego State.
yes,
So
yeah. No, they're gonna be a team that can be on my list of teams to watch. Especially another West Coast team, so we'll be staying up a little bit late,
yeah,
watching
yeah,
some games. But no, this is great. This is great. Let's move on to some teams that you may not be so high on. I'll start off. I have two teams that um, are ranked pretty high that I don't think will be there. Kind of similar to what you said, be higher than what they
right.
went. I think they'll be lower by the end of the year. I think Auburn is a team that obviously they're going through some stuff, losing their coach, which would be super hard so late in the season, or so yeah, I guess late in the season. They just lost to Oklahoma State, who was a solid team, Big 12 team, but I don't know. I think they have a pretty new team coming back, really just to hide like the really one player from this last year's team who was just disgusting last year. And I think just Bruce Pearl leaving that team is probably the last thing that they needed. Like you have a whole new team, so many transfers, so many new players, and for the coach to leave so late in this process, I think um, will do them a disservice. Being that SEC too, where it's just a gauntlet, you're going against teams every single night. Um, I forgot what their preseason ranking is,
I
but
believe you can look it up, but I know they're either like 18 through 20.
yeah, they're 18 through 20. Yeah, yeah.
But
I don't know.
I
At 13, I don't know if it's going to be that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say to you from, again, a player's perspective, if you've ever had like again, maybe not a in the season coaching change, and if you did, it'd be great to speak to, but have you ever had something where obviously a coaching change happened and all these players, right? I know, Stephen Pearl's been on the staff there and whatnot, but what do you think possibly could be their mindset? What do you think could differ, or where do you think maybe things could go wrong where you're kind of alluding to maybe they're not going to meet those expectations?
yeah. So funny enough, I did have a situation my freshman year of high school where my head coach, and like his staff, like the two assistant coaches, they couldn't coach some games for whatever reason it was. So we had one of our like assistant coaches who was kind of like more of like a freshman coach. He had to come coach our varsity game, and we played a team that like wasn't that good. We usually beat the team by 30, 40 points, and that game we won by like a few points, but after the game we're like, that's not how it should have went. And I think I'm not putting it on our coach, but just the whole dynamic just changes because it's like you're like I said, if you're playing for this coach for all this time, and then out of nowhere it's like, all right, who is going to lead this team? Who's going to be that? Who's going to be that person that we look towards? And I feel like these guys were working with the coach throughout the whole summer. They probably knew that this is probably going to come, I think, earlier than what it came out to be.
Right.
So they probably had a little bit of hopefully some time to adapt to it. But it's tough. I mean, yes, his son's coaching. They probably have the same exact philosophies and all that stuff. But hearing that voice of like Bruce Pearl talking to you is a little bit different. And we'll see. I hope they do well. I don't know. But I think they're a team that's like that could be a huge just loss for them, and how they probably thought their season was gonna go. So it'll be interesting though.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the only way to really find out about that too is when adversity will hit, right? So
Yeah.
I guess we kind of got a glimpse of that versus Oklahoma State. So we'll see how they respond in their next
Hmm.
exhibition or first game. But
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a good call there. It's anytime you lose a great head coach, it's tough in college
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's gonna be hard to come back, but we'll see. We'll see.
so yeah, I kind of will say with this underachieving teams I picked, it might be definitely some hot takes, but one of the teams I definitely think is not going to be where they currently are is UConn. So this kind of changed for me recently, but they just had an injury to one of their big players, Braylon Mullins. Yeah, so he could be out 6 to 8 weeks, and he, in my opinion, is probably their best, most talented NBA prospect. And then if you look at that team, other than him, I see some guys who maybe Alex Caravan, maybe a solo ball could get in that second round combo, but those are not guys that are surefire NBA prospects. And UConn last year really had a tough time, staying in front of guys, and that lead to their big guys getting in foul trouble. I do think Demery, the point guard from Georgia, is a huge upgrade there, and
Yeah.
I think he's a
Yeah.
great defender.
Hmm.
However, they're going to have most lineups, I would assume, would be Demery now. It's going to be Ball. It could be, Jalen Stewart. It could be
Hmm.
Caravan and Reed. And if those guys are, I wouldn't say outstanding defenders, and if, there's three or four guys on the court who are not really great defenders, it's hard for me to believe that you're going to be a top five team, right? To be a top five team, you got to be on both sides of the ball. You can't be really have one side just be so far below the other.
Yeah.
And I also think, an underrated thing for this team as well is they've had the amount of talent in terms of NBA talent they've had the past 2 or 3 years has been unbelievable with Klingon, Sonogo, Jackson. And without Mullins, they're not a team I think that has that same level of talent. So I just don't think that the top five, especially with Mullins out. Now, if Mullins comes back and is able to be that kind of NBA first round guy, then I think that changes the conversation. But again, a freshman, he's going to be hurt. There's going to be some catching up to do. I just don't think that they're going to be, 1 or 2 seed, for example, in the tournament.
Yeah. No, that's gonna be that's a tough blow for them. So I think like where else they have, like you said, they have Solo Ball, they have Silas, they have Carrot, but that Mullins kid, he could really shoot the like he's a scorer. So I'm saying
Yeah.
obviously Solo Ball doesn't get his, Silas probably can get his, but like where else do you get that scoring from on the wing aspect? You know
And
what I'm saying?
right, because at the end of the day, also what we've seen with UConn in the past, especially with first year point guards, we saw with Tristan Newton, right? It took him almost the full year up
Yeah,
until the NCAA tournament to get
yeah,
going.
that's
So
true.
even though Demery's an experienced player, he's on an NCAA tournament team last year in Georgia, Hurley's system is very complex. That's why it makes it so effective. So it's going to
Hmm.
take them, I think, a little bit of time. So I think they'll probably be a top 20 team, top 15 team by the year's end. But I think top five, I think they're number 4 right now. It's just a little high.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when the preseason first came out, I was a little shocked to see them that high, just based on their season last year. But obviously, there's a lot of new pieces. But yeah, that's just gonna be a huge loss for
Right.
UConn. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So you don't think could you name some NBA players from UConn? Sonogo, Klingon, they have Jordan Hawkins,
Stephen Castle.
Castle. Yeah, they got some guys. Do you think this kind of going off tangent a little bit, but do you think Hurley kind of develops these players in a sense to like get them to the NBA? 'Cause I don't know if like Jordan Hawkins, Cam Spencer are like NBA guys before coming to UConn. I think that there was some development there at UConn which kind of got them to where they are now.
Yeah, because I think if you look at the track record, right, obviously a Donovan Clingan and Stephen Castle coming in as great prospects. Okay, that's
Hmm.
one story. But again, Andre Jackson, Sonogo, Jordan Hawkins, those guys were not surefire when they got their NBA prospects. Cam Spencer was not a surefire. Alex Caravan, right, a possible NBA prospect. He is, those. So Hurley definitely does a great job developing there, and they also have a great staff. Kamani Young, Luke Murray, those guys do a great job. So I definitely think it's probably, yes, Hurley's had 1 or 2 guys that are 5-star and NBA prospects, right, from high school most likely, but he's done a great job developing them. Also, their system, they do a great job in the transfer portal, in high school recruiting of matching player style and what their strengths are to their system.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean I'm a huge advocate. I would say for Hurley. Obviously, people are on polarizing sides of it just because how he is as a coach and stuff like that. But I do think like he knows what he wants from his players. He knows what system he wants from his players, and I think he puts them in the right position to kind of get to
Yeah,
where he wants them to be towards the end of the year. So
absolutely. That's why you can never count them out because even last year,
yeah,
how poor they were
they're
at
right there,
times, right? They were right there,
really right there,
right there.
like right there.
Yeah,
No, I mean they'll be interesting. I think them in the Big East, this pretty solid teams in the Big East this upcoming year. I think it'll just be interesting to see how it kind of unfolds with them
absolutely.
and some other teams. My second team that I had that I'm not too high on. I don't really know too much about them just in general, just from recently. But I had UCLA down. They were ranked 12th in the preseason AP poll.
Right.
I think they have a lot of guys coming back. I think they'll be pretty solid. They add Donovan Dent, which I think will be great for their team. But also, I think it could get to a point where he's a very on ball dominant type of player, and you have players like Sky Clark, Eric Daly, who kind of thrive with having the ball in their hands. So just having that dynamic of those two guards who pretty much are on ball type players, I could definitely see some situations where that might clash a little bit, where their team can kind of not do as great as what that 12 number is saying. And they're in the Big Ten now, so they're traveling, and that just in general is like a tough schedule for them. So I could see them losing some games where it's just like they're
Absolutely.
going across the country back to back days, and then they might drop some games just based off of that. So they're my second team I had written down. Um, Maybe if you have more insight on their team and just some thoughts on.
Yeah, so I think that it'll be interesting to see with Dent, who obviously comes from his when he was playing at New Mexico, a very up and down pace, whereas Mick Cronin's more of a, you know, slower pace, defensive tempo and whatnot.
Mhm.
And that'll be an interesting thing as well. And I think an underrated thing is they had a player last year, Day Mara, who's the starting center now. I believe that based off the exhibition versus St. John's, and they went from him to Xavier Booker, where I think some people are, see the Xavier Booker, the high school recruit, number one player in the country. And so far, he's been a solid, college player, but maybe he hasn't lived up to that. So I think that could possibly be a little bit of a downgrade as well. But I agree with you. I do think that, again, probably a high floor team, right? A team that's going to make the tournament. But in terms of that ceiling of Final Four, second weekend, I agree. Maybe there could be some doubts there.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see another West Coast team that we'll have to stay up for.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'm gonna have to set
Yeah,
my alarm. You know.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Did you have any other teams that you may thought that have?
Yeah. So I think, and this probably will be a bit of a hot take, but one team I don't really see the top 10 hype is BYU.
Hmm.
So I watched their scrimmage against UNC, and there's no doubt AJ DeBanza is a phenomenal player, a top three pick in probably this draft. And it's nice to have a player on your team where you could basically give him the ball and go get a bucket. But it's also something I noticed where their best perimeter defender in that game was AJ DeBanza.
Yeah,
So they're a team where they do have Rob Wright's a talented player, Richie Saunders is a talented player. Keita, the center, was very good last year as a roller, rim protector, but they don't really have on this team a lot of, in my opinion, size and length, and they don't have many plus defenders, in my opinion. So again, going in the Big 12, right, going against teams like Houston, Iowa State, Texas Tech, where the games are going to be physical, you're going to go against length. Sometimes when you're not going to be able to just get the first shot that you want, right, you're going to have to be able to get some stops. And I just think, again, for like the number 8 team in the country, you can't be, either a below average or poor defensive team. And I don't see them on that side of the ball. Along with, you know, in that game versus UNC, again, UNC is not a team I would say has stellar perimeter defense. Rob Wright, I know it's, new place, new system, getting to learn, all that stuff, but there's just a lot of indecision, a lot of, sloppy turnovers, but they're definitely a team that has a lot of talent. If they could pull it all together, they have a great coach. They could definitely make a run like they did last year, but they're a team I just don't quite see it with them quite yet.
yeah. That'll be interesting. I think they have just so much hype around Devansa, and Wright and stuff like that. So I think, just the media and everyone had that high hopes of like, and they still could get there, but it's like, I think bringing them at 8 was pretty premature and pretty high. They had a great end of the year and they kind of added some great pieces and they still have Richie Saunders and some of their big guys. But I think bringing them that high is a little bit too high in my opinion as well. I think 8 is high. And they make a great point. It's like AJ DeBansa was their best defender. He's a great defender, but it's like, where else are you gonna get that from the perimeter, right?
Right, it's tough as we
Numbers
know in the
on
NBA game as well. It's tough to be your team's primary offensive creator and primary on-ball defender
right.
and best
Yeah,
defender. It's tough.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see how they do. I think it'll be still a very exciting team to watch. I'll definitely be
No doubt.
tuned in. I love the way they play offensively. They have an NBA type of system, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna be tapped into those games. This is a great segue into these freshman performances, these freshman players that we've had starting off this year. Like you just mentioned, AJ DeBansa, you have Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer just looking dominant. You mentioned Kobe Pete earlier, Michael Brown. Obviously, we were talking about earlier how I think college is going more towards older players and experience and age. But this freshman class has kind of been doing so very well in these exhibitions. I think this might be one of the better freshman classes that we've seen in a pretty long time.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people, college basketball, NBA experts are saying this is definitely one of the best classes, especially at the top. But yeah, we could definitely. I'm curious. Obviously, a Duke fan. What your thoughts on Cam Boozer was in his first scrimmage? Obviously, they had a second one against Tennessee. What do you see in his game just from breaking him down? What separates him so far in terms of
Yeah.
his great start?
Yeah, so I watched the Tennessee game last night and 2020 game versus an SEC team, older team, strong team, physical team. I think with him, he kind of reminds me of Paulo a lot, where it's like he has that finesse, but then he also has that power on the other end. And I think he knows when to use each. He knows if he has a small defender, he's going to use his power, just get through them, use his body, go to get a finish. And I think he also has that outside perimeter game where he can take a slower defender or even a short defender, kind of rise over and get a shot up above him. But what I saw this past game, and I thought was what's going to be huge for Duke, and I think it's going to be huge for everyone else, was his passing ability. He had, I think, 6 assists. I think he had 1 turnover, but I think that was pretty late in the game. But he was playing that point forward position, that slot area, and they were running a play where it was like they had someone in the corner, they had other guy in the slot, and they had someone sort of flare for the guy in the slot. And when that guy in the slot would flare and curl to the basket, obviously that corner guy would come dig and help. And he was making that cross court pass, hinge shooters like Isaiah Evans, um, and these guys, and he was opening up their game a lot. So I thought he really impressed me, at least versus Tennessee, with his passing ability. I think that he's the type of player that might be the number one player. Might be number one pick. I mean, but it's like
Yeah.
yeah. So I was really impressed with how he was doing. So
I saw something on him the other day in terms of his AAU and high school accolades and FIBA
oh yeah, it's
accolades that
crazy.
he's one of the
Yeah, he's
most,
crazy.
his the amount of games he's won, the tournaments, the prestige. And it's something where, obviously he's so talented, but it also translates to winning. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited to see that at Duke this year with him.
yeah. No, he was pretty good. Let's talk about Darren Peterson. He's a guy that I think he emerged as the number one player when it was all said and done out of high school. Being at Kansas, Bill Self kind of said, however he does is how our team does. And I think that puts a lot on a freshman. I think he's super talented, 6'6" type of guard wing type of player. But they're putting a lot on his plate coming in at Kansas. What's your outlooks on him, and how you think he can kind of lead that group this year?
Yeah, so I think obviously like Coach Self said and what, I watched first Louisville a little bit, yes, they're gonna go as far as he goes, but I think what separates him is obviously being their primary creator and ball handler is he has size and that obviously helps him out and whatnot, but his, non-forcing a play or his pace, it just seems so advanced for someone at this age. When freshmen you see a lot of these exhibition games, they're trying to make a play, get in the paint and kind of have that home run play, but you could just see him in pick and rolls. He's just very fluid and the game comes easy to him. It's not rushing a shot, it's not forcing a play. And that was kind of what stuck out to me versus the Louisville team, who again is supposedly going to have, a very good year and a strong team. So I definitely think, he looked the part.
Yeah,
And I think Coach Self or an assistant coach on the staff said that Darren Peterson's the best player Bill Self has ever coached. And you have to remember, right, he's coached Andrew Wiggins, he's coached Joel Embiid, right? Those are two guys that are studs.
yeah,
So
yeah. And he has some like Devontae Graham, like he has some 4 year guards that Frank Mason that were just like
player of the years candidates.
player of the years, and so that yeah, they definitely have a high hopes for him. I think just from watching some highlights of that Louisville game, like he knows he has that green light, so he's gonna do whatever he wants, and I feel like he's good enough to where he's gonna get his stuff off. It's gonna be interesting to see how he can get like his teammates involved. I think that's gonna be I think the next step for him. Because yeah, that first game I don't know how many. I don't know if he didn't really have that many assists.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
what from your point guard kind of guard lead guard background, obviously he's someone who's scoring his whole life has been his primary focus. And obviously in high school, you're probably someone who's looked to score on. What do you kind of think going into college and trying to, again, run an offense, get guys in the right spot? What do you just kind of take us through maybe the mindset and kind of your, how do you go about that and do it, at a high rate? Because at the end of the day, if you're a point guard of a winning team, you're getting guys the ball in the spots that they can succeed. You're getting guys involved and whatnot.
I think from a point guard perspective, I'll go from point guard perspective, and I'll talk about I think his perspective.
Absolutely.
Um, I think from PG perspective, you're a leader. You're a extension of the coach. You're the leader on the court. You got to make sure everything is ran how it's supposed to be run. And I think there's so many sets that are run in the game in the half court, and you got to make sure like your biggest in the right spot, your wings in the right spot, your backcourt mate is in the right spot. And from a point guard perspective, yeah, you might be a great scorer, but you probably have a lot of other great scorers around you. And I think that was a big transition, not transition, but adjustment for me this past year at RPI. I had great scorers around me like every time on the court. Dylan, A, PJ, Deppy, Shill, Pat off the bench and stuff like that. And obviously, I'm the type of guy where I like to get my buckets too. But um, Coach Gilbride really was like, "Yeah, you're a good scorer. We obviously going to lean on to you at certain times to get us buckets. But if you can get by your man, get to 2 feet in the paint, get to a jump stop, dump it down to Deppy, kick out for PJ or for Dylan for three, it only makes you feel better as a point guard, but also makes these guys better. Because if you're a point guard, you're gonna have the ball in your hand at all times. So you honestly can
Right.
shoot the ball whenever you want. But is that gonna be the best for the team? Is that gonna be the best for the confidence of your teammates that may need to see the ball go through the hoop? So that was definitely a huge adjustment to that for me. And I think point guards just looking forward, it would be something that is huge in their games. I think for Peterson though, I think it's a little bit different. I think he's more of a six. He's like more of a scoring guard.
Right.
But I think having that aspect where you can pass the ball will open up his game even more. Because now it's like you're driving going right. Now people can't dig in on you because you have the ability to kick out to other guys. You know that you're an unselfish player. So if he was a player where I don't think he is the type of player, but if he was a player where he was shooting every single time, I think it would be easy for them to guard the team as a whole. But if he has if he has that aspect of like, yeah, I'm gonna get to my spot. If you bring two or three, I'm comfortable and trust my teammates enough to kick this ball out or to give it a dump down. So different perspectives, but I do think it's more of just like a team aspect of it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally.
I got to talk to you a little bit about this Louisville guard, Mikal Brown. Like I've heard a lot about him. USA, he's been doing his thing. Yeah, I don't know, did he win MVP this past summer?
I believe he did, but
I
that
think
was
he did.
honestly his kind of, not that he wasn't well known before that, but that was kind of like in terms of college basketball this year getting he's I believe could be preseason ACC first team or one of
Hmm.
those things, and yeah, he that's where he kind of exploded. But he's someone again for that Louisville system based off what I've seen, he could get hot in a hurry. So
Yeah,
he's someone who's going to thrive in that fast-paced environment, and he's someone again, he has some size to him a little bit. He can get his shot off, and it'll be interesting to see again for their team. He's someone who has high hopes as a draft pick, but they also have great players on their team. Isaac McNeely, they have Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley. Like they have a lot of great guards there, so it'll be interesting to see how he kind of balances, getting his and being a great player that he is versus three other guards who are wonderful as well.
yeah. I think come from that USA team where he played with AJ, he played with Kobe,
It's a
he
great
played with these
point.
other guys who are like obviously his level or even a little bit better.
Yep.
And he was kind of the one that kind of made his name out there, like, and was getting people involved, getting to his spots when he needed to. So I'm super excited to watch him. Obviously, he's in the ACC, so hopefully he does well versus every other
Yep.
team but Duke. But no, I'm super excited to see. It's interesting though to see like this freshman class though, because like we were just saying, it's all about like older guys, and a lot of
Absolutely.
these bigger teams are really putting these freshmen on the pedestal. It's like, okay, you're a guy. Um, let's go get it. It's on you. And I think that's
Yeah.
gonna be huge for the NBA because all these guys are probably gonna be one and dones. But it's gonna be very interesting as the season goes along to see where their draft stocks, whether they're doing great, rising, not doing as well, maybe losing a little bit. But yeah, I'm super excited to see this freshman class coming in. So.
Yeah. Was there maybe a guy you saw this in some of the games that you were kind of impressed by that maybe isn't getting a lot of publicity as
Yeah.
those other guys possibly?
I think, and this is a Duke guy, but I think Dame Sarr,
Okay.
out of is it from France? I'm pretty sure it's from France.
It's either he's from France
Or
or
Spain
Italy,
or
but
something.
I'm
France or
not
where?
sure. Italy,
Italy. Okay. Okay.
possibly,
Yeah.
but
I know he's from somewhere overseas, and I think he was a pretty highly touted player, but I don't think he's gonna be that type of guy for Duke, where it's like he's gonna get all these buckets for us and be that offensive star power. But I think he's the type of guy who probably I think he will go to the NBA after this year, just based on
right,
he's like 6'6", 6'7", long arms. But what stood out to me was like he was guarding at a super high level. Like
right.
Gillespie was kind of getting off in that first half. They kind of put him on Gillespie. His energy was just super contagious. What I think Duke kind of needs in terms of like, yeah, we have all these guys, but who's gonna come in and get that energy off the bench?
Yeah.
So he was a huge guy. But I was like, okay, I like this game, and I think NBA scouts are gonna like him as well.
And I think sometimes in college, at least growing up and, while I was in college, you kind of get lost with the 5 star or the first year guys in terms of how many points, right? If they don't score 50 or 20 points, they're a bust, right? But a
Right.
good example was last year, Kamal Malawach for Duke, right? I don't know many games he was getting 20 points, but he was someone had such a big impact defensively, offensively, screening and rolling to the basket. He had such a huge impact on the game and just playing his role that
Hmm.
got him a lottery, a
Hmm.
lottery pick. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot more, and we'll talk on the podcast as the season goes on, of when we're looking at players, sometimes it's not okay. This guy shoots 40% from three. This guy gets 10 rebounds. This guy gets 20 points. Sometimes it's like, okay, he went against a great NBA prospect and he dominated the matchup, or he defensively caused havoc on the game, or he went to go, had 4 offensive rebounds. So sometimes it's about just excelling in your role. A great example of this is Christian Braun, right, at Kansas. He did that to a T at Kansas. He did it to a T at Denver now, and
Even high school, he was
yeah,
doing that.
and he's set for life. He's not
Yeah,
worried about it.
exactly.
Yeah,
He's good. Yeah, that's definitely something that we'll definitely be highlighting as time goes on. Because I think a lot of younger kids, players in general, they don't really see that. They think it's like star player, star player, star player, but it's not.
exactly.
It's like you can get paid, you can be a great player doing certain things that what your team needs, and I think
Absolutely.
we definitely need to highlight. Let's talk about these exhibition games. We had some crazy games this past weekend, high level, top 10 teams. Let's first start with St. John's in Michigan. That was a pretty crazy game, overtime game. Got to see Gaxel kind of do his thing. Some guys on St. John's, Zuby, Josan. What were your thoughts about that game and how it was as
What immediately stood out to me in that game was both front courts,
hmm
right? St. John's, Dylan Mitchell, Zuby Ejiofor, Bryce Hopkins. Those guys are just physically imposing
Yeah.
players, whether it's on the offensive glass or athletically. Those guys were very imposing. And then from Michigan, obviously Yaxel is a great player. Ade Mara, Merez Johnson.
hmm
Those guys were. I mean, it was a great front court matchup, and those two teams, they probably both have top 5 front courts, each of
Yeah.
them,
Easily.
and they're, that's the key, key to those teams.
Yeah.
I would say for both teams on the flip side, the guards for both teams are going to be a work in progress, not due to
Mhm.
talent. They definitely have a lot of talent on both sides, whether it's St. John's with Joson Sanon, Ozias Sellers, or Ian Jackson, and then Michigan with Elliot Cadeau, Roddy Gale, those and Namari Burnett. Those guys are, very talented players, but you could see like Michigan, I believe in the game had 20 turnovers.
I think Cadell he had a good amount of assists, but I think he has a pretty good amount of turnovers as well. It's gonna be interesting because like a lot of these guys are also transfers. Cadell transfer, all three of those guys that you'd mentioned for St. John's are transfers. So it'll definitely take some time for them to get used to it. I don't want to look too much into these preseason games, but I think these will be
I, I
those
yeah,
those
I
really
think
highlight.
it's a good thing to just look at, okay, what are these teams, what are they trying to do? What's their style of play versus the
Right.
result,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just because, for example, we'll talk about the game later, Purdue and Kentucky, just because one team blew the other team out, do we
Yeah.
really think any differently? Maybe, right. So
It
it's
was, it
just,
was something crazy, but it's like I don't want to look too much into these games. For the most part, they were all really high level and really competitive, which is kind of great. Obviously, no team's really getting like just dismantled out there. But yeah, I agree. I think the front courts really were super intriguing to watch.
yeah,
Very athletic. Yaxel was getting to it kind of every aspect of the court, and I think that shows like he's going to be that guy for Michigan this year. And I mean, he's one of the best players in the country. So, um,
absolutely.
and I thought um, Zuby did very well versus him. Dylan Mitchell did really well, I thought, which is good for him because I think he's that type of guy that's like he can be a really good player for them, emerging player. Because I think he's been in a couple places so far. They don't really work out in his favor, but I think this might be a
Yeah.
place where he can get up and down and like kind of show off his athletic ability and even show off his actual game. So I was really excited for him as well.
Yeah, I think just kind of recapping it here, maybe a player on each side that was kind of like, okay, this guy is going to be a, significant player for the team. One was Dylan Mitchell.
Hmm.
He's someone who had a coming out of high school, high ranking, went to Texas, went to Cincinnati. He's been a few places, but he is by far the best defender on that team, and he is someone who he does have a little playmaking to him, which I didn't really understand, or I knew beforehand. But he's definitely an underrated player. And then for Michigan, I'd definitely say Ade Mara was someone who at times he looked like the best player on the court. He's someone who was physically imposing, whether it's rolling to the rim, shot blocking. He's someone where, last year Michigan played with Danny Wolf and Golden. They're going to try to do that again, probably with Yaxel in that kind of Danny-ish role, and then Golden with Mara. So those are two guys I thought were kind of under the radar that surprised me.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that big to big pick and roll they had last year with Danny Wolf and Golden were probably something that they're probably get to this upcoming year. Um, we had the number one team take an early loss to Kentucky. Kentucky beat Purdue 78-65. What were your thoughts on that game? Obviously, Purdue's number one team. Kentucky's a really good team. They're probably one of the deepest teams in the country, so it's a really good game at Kentucky too. But
Yeah.
Kentucky kind of, they kind of, I won't say had their way with them, but they looked like they were in the driver's seat for pretty much the whole game, and Purdue's kind of took
Yes. So I think what's kind of interesting taken away from this game from Kentucky in kind of a positive way is Mark Pope, obviously at BYU in his first year in Kentucky. It was definitely a heavy focus on perimeter shooting, pace of play, and having four guys on the court who could really shoot it. But sometimes, again, that would take away from the defensive side of the ball for them.
Mhm.
And you could see this year, whether it's Diabate, whether it's Owe on the court, whether it's whoever else is on the court for them, Aberdeen, for example, from Florida, those guys can really defend. And Pope is always going to be a coach that can draw up great plays and get guys open. And they have, whether it's Jasper Johnson, who played phenomenal for a freshman, and they have other guys on that team that could really shoot it. It definitely seems this year this team is more evenly balanced. And I think even though maybe they don't have the high end firepower on offense, it could lead to more March success for them by having that more balanced. And also just their roster. Their second unit could be starters at,
Yeah.
a lot of places. So
Mhm.
that was very evident throughout the game because there was no drop off when those
Yeah.
guys came in.
Yeah, they look good. They look good. I think Pope did a great job in the transfer portal. Um, getting players that are proven and won. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
Aberdeen obviously was at Florida, Diabate at Bama. So these players that play for great programs and they kind of proven that they could sit on the defensive end. And like you said, Mark Post, he's gonna let them rock on the offensive end. Oway, Jasper Johnson, who really impressed me, come off the bench is like, it's tough for a player like that, being a five-star your whole life.
Absolutely.
He kind of came in and he did well. So they were a team that I'm super. I wouldn't say I'm high on. I would say I'm interested to see how
See how
they
they
will
play out.
do early on. Um, but they have so much talent. I think Mark Pope is a great coach so far, and I think he'll put them in the right positions. So yeah, they're really good. What do you think about Purdue? How do you think they're supposed to be that number one team? They have the whole team
Right.
basically coming back, a couple transfers coming in. Brandon Smith, preseason AP Player of the Year.
Right.
What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. Again, just because the outcome didn't go their way this game in kind of a dramatic fashion, it's an exhibition. We think they're a great team, you and I. But I think one of the things that kind of reinforced to me last year, I didn't think they were that great defensively.
Hmm.
Kind of thought they were a little slow, small, little not as athletic versus, like, for example, an SEC team, right? But and this year they got a transfer center in Oscar Clough, so they added some size and whatnot. But you could kind of tell versus Kentucky, they just had a tough time again staying in front. And I'm interested to see again the number one team in the country, right? They have a great shot to win it all. They're going to go against a team like a Kentucky, a Florida, a Houston, an Arkansas, where these teams have guys that are just they're five athletes on the floor that are they're huge. Their length is really apparent, and I'm interested to see how that'll play out with Purdue because that's definitely obviously in the Big Ten there are teams that have size and athleticism, but probably not to the degree of an SEC or those top end Big East teams we've mentioned already a little bit or the ACC. So on the defensive side of the ball, I still have some questions from last year, but I do think again they're a team. They have a lot of depth. They have guys who are on the bench that would start at most places. So I wouldn't say it's a huge cause of concern, but I'm definitely interested to see defensively how they gel. Because again, from last year, they were not a strong defensive team.
Yeah, I think when they played these SEC Big East teams, I think for them, you gotta just control the pace. Like I don't think you can really go up and down with like Kentucky, Bama,
Absolutely.
Florida, all these teams because they're trying to go. Like they're getting rebounds, they're out, and they're gonna come defend you on the other end. I think with them having a smart point guard and a experienced backcourt and just front court in general, like their whole team's pretty experienced. If they can get to that point where it's like we want to play at this pace, and it might be different for each team. It might be play a smaller team that can't keep up with you. You might have to go fast, or you play a team that's like up and down. Might have to switch it up. So I think for them it would be huge is making sure that they control the pace at every single game. So
What I was going to ask, because obviously Braden Smith is someone who's has a lot of hype coming into the year. What do you think makes him, again, the best consensus point guard in college basketball? Because he's someone who, again, he doesn't have all the athleticism or size, but if you watch him every game, you're leaving that game saying, yeah, he was one of the best players on the court.
yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I just said in terms of controlling the pace. Like you've seen point guards and players that they just controlled the whole game. Like they were
Right.
playing chess. They were putting players in positions they want. They were making defense do what they want. I think he's that type of player. I think he knows what spots he wants to get to. I think he knows how to play in the pick and roll very well. He plays with big men very well, and you put shooters around him. He knows to get to a spot. He's gonna draw two. He's gonna kick it. He's gonna dump down. Um, I think as a 4 year player, experienced player, he's kind of picked that up, and I think that he kind of has this team like known very well in terms of how he plays with them. So, yeah, he's the type of player that you want on your team. I think he's a great leader and stuff like that. So, and also he can get to the spots and knock some shots down too. So,
Yeah, he's one of the best
yeah,
mid-ranges in college,
exactly,
so
exactly. So whenever you need a bug, I think you can go to him as well. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I don't know if they're gonna be the number one team when it's all said and done this year, but um, I think they'll be interesting to watch in the Big Ten. So.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, man. This college basketball, it's crazy, crazy,
Yeah,
crazy
next,
landscape.
and it's funny now, especially early in the year now, there's so many more quality games and whatnot in terms of
Yeah,
non-conference tournaments. So
yeah,
we're excited to talk about it all. It'll be good to talk about for sure.
yeah, for sure. And I think this was a great first episode. I think we covered a lot. We're gonna have some guests on talk about their insights while having me and Steve still talking about what we think about the season to go on. And yeah, like this is just be a journey. It's gonna be a long season, but we're gonna be here dropping episodes, giving our insights. If you guys have anything that you may disagree with, let us know. We'll be open to any type of comments, debates, anything like that. But yeah, man, I thought this is awesome. This is awesome. So
No, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
yeah. All right, we're signing off, man. Steve, great first episode. We'll be back at it soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks again.